Good evening and welcome to a special edition of the Week in Review. Tonight, it's the Year in Review. I'm Paris Schutz. We'll go inside the major stories of 2022 and look into our crystal ball to predict what's coming in 2023, starting with a wide-open Chicago mayoral contest and Governor Pritzker taking the oath for his second term.
People of Illinois, thank you for placing your trust in me.
Governor J.B. Pritzker waltzed to re-election in November after a challenge from downstate Republican Darren Bailey. Pritzker caps a banner night for Illinois Democrats who keep supermajorities in the State House and sweep all major statewide offices.
The indictment accuses Madigan of leading, for nearly a decade, a criminal enterprise.
This despite the stunning corruption indictment of powerful former House Speaker Mike Madigan, embroiled in alleged schemes to assist ComEd and AT&T in exchange for bribes.
Want to play?
Love to, but I've got work to do for our city.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot announces her re-election bid amid sagging approval ratings and a field of 10 challengers. Lightfoot claims big victories in 2022, a balanced budget, and the approval of a long-sought Chicago casino. But persistently high crime has Chicagoans on edge, with the city closing in on 700 homicides for the year.
The last approximately 36 hours have been a lesson in the duality of humanity.
Highland Park teen Robert Cremo indicted in the July 4th mass shooting in Highland Park that killed 7 and injured dozens more. It spurred calls statewide for more gun control and accountability for Cremo's father, who approved his son's FOID application.
We cannot allow our daughters and granddaughters to have fewer rights than we do.
Illinois lawmakers vow more abortion protections in the wake of the Supreme Court Dobbs decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Chicago's Ukrainian-American community on edge as Russia's attack on Ukraine creates a refugee crisis and upends the world economy.
Inflation. It's sapping the strength of a lot of families.
Inflation remains a stubborn problem with signs of abating in the new year amid worries of a possible coming recession. This as major corporations pack up and move out of Chicago. The Chicago Bears are likely on their way out too, closing in on plans for a new home in Arlington Heights, despite the mayor's vow to make Soldier Field more attractive.
Right on cue, Justin Fields to the end zone.
Meanwhile, on the field, quarterback Justin Fields gives fans hope amid another last-place season, while the disappointing White Sox look to the future after the departure of Hall of Fame manager Tony La Russa. And let's raise our glasses tonight. Joining us are Steve Daniels of Crane's Chicago Business, Laura Washington of the Chicago Tribune and ABC 7 Chicago, Rick Pearson of the Chicago Tribune, and Maggie Hendricks of Bally Sports. We'll have a special toast at the end of the evening, but let's get right to it. Starting with that mayor's race, Laura Washington, if you had to predict now, would Mayor Lightfoot make the final runoff?
I avoid predictions, but I would say there's a strong possibility. Right now, one poll has her coming in second in the first round. Another poll has her coming in third. It looks like, if you want to believe the polls, and I think basically in terms of name recognition and visibility, you would have Chuy Garcia, Paul Vallis, and Lori Lightfoot. And Lori Lightfoot's numbers are so poor right now. Everywhere you go, people say anybody but Lori. So she's got a real big mountain to climb.
And Rick Pearson, we mentioned some of her legislative victories, the budget, the casino bill. Can she turn this into political momentum?
I don't know. I really think it's going to be very difficult. And, you know, when you look at some of the advertising that she's trying to do and even acknowledge mea culpa kind of thing, I'm not sure that that's really resonating with the voters. I mean, I think people have made up their minds already on
as we said, the Rahm sweater strategy.
Exactly, and I think people have made up their minds, and it's going to be very difficult to try to pull those people back.
And the Rahm sweater strategy was really aimed at a lot of people who had become disenchanted with him, particularly progressives. But that was sort of the big piece that he was missing in his reelection. I mean, she's got problems with the progressives. She's got problems with people all over the city. So she's got more people that she's got to
those
reassure.
negatives. She's working against. She's going upstream here with the negative attitudes that some of these polls have already shown, and she's deeply underwater on unfavorable to favorable.
Maggie Hendricks in 2019, she was kind of a no-name that vaulted to the top kind of out of nowhere. Is there a candidate this time that might do that?
I think if people start looking at the politics of Cam Buckner and looking at his actual positions, I feel like he could be somebody who could make that vault, because the kind of things he's talking about are the exact things that everybody I know is talking about, caring about transit, caring about crime in a way that's more holistic, like looking at things bigger than just individual problems. And I like that a lot about Cam Buckner.
So Cam Buckner, one that you're watching. Steve Daniels, Chuy Garcia, leading early in the polls, dogged by some of these reports of the congressional money he received from Sam Bankman-Fried. Is that going to be something that knocks him off of the top spot here?
Well, it's going to be brought to the attention of voters, courtesy, I'm sure, of the mayor and negative advertising or perhaps others. It is a weak spot for him, and it's one that he's kind of struggled to explain, you know, and I think for her, you know, that we spoke about her weakness. Well, you know, a lot of these other candidates are going to be subject to negative advertising and, you know, won't perhaps look as strong as they do today.
The name recognition means the money means the ads might mean more negative ads and defining other candidates that way.
But the show is just getting ready to start.
That's
I
right.
mean, once we get past the holidays, that's where we're going to start seeing this advertising come in, and it's just going to be a knockdown.
Right, because people haven't been paying attention at all. I mean, we pay attention.
There's election fatigue.
And we just went through an election in November, and people have really not recovered from that yet.
Yeah, so for folks that don't know, the election's in February, guys, the general
February
election,
28th.
and then the runoff. Speaking of things that might happen in the new year, the casino was approved. Will that temporary casino go up at Medina?
It's supposed to next year. It's going to be dependent on state approval from of their gaming license, but otherwise, yeah. I mean, assuming they get that, I think that it looks like it's going to happen, which will be, you know, this is something that's been in the works in Chicago for so many years, decades. Really, and to see it actually happen will be, for those of us who with some gray in our hair, will be quite something.
See, we'll have to document the moving trucks unloading the slot machines and card tables and rolling them into the Medina Temple and River North. Rick Pearson, the new state legislative session begins in 23 with Democrats with as much control as they've ever had. Pritzker is back. The Democrats defied the typical midterm story in Illinois. They didn't do so well in New York. What was the difference here?
Well, I think one thing is that it was the way the districts were drawn, the congressional districts were drawn in New York, and they were drawn that helped favor Republican candidates. In fact, people kind of say that the whole reason that the House flipped those 5 seats, you can count New York as the sole fact for that flipping from Democrats to Republicans.
AKA New York didn't have a Mike Madigan.
Well, that's true. And also, you know, when you look at the fact of concentration of voting and population, you know, we see Illinois losing population. Yes, there's some in Chicago, but it's largely downstate rural areas. Those congressional districts just keep growing. It's easier to isolate people and draw the map lines that way and allow Democrats to keep, now they'll have 14-3 over Republicans in
the congressional districts and supermajorities in the State House, Laura Washington. So what do you think that means for legislation like an assault weapons ban that's been talked about or further protections for abortion?
Well, the Democrats should be able to do anything they want in Springfield right now. And that was actually one of the criticisms during the campaign from the Republicans, that, you know, that they're not getting very much done, even though they have the supermajorities. And I think there is a strong determination to get that assault weapons ban through and to maybe to add more abortion protections too. Those were the 2 major political issues that came out of the campaign, and the Democrats won statewide in those campaigns.
But there's a real question here too, is while they have this expanded majority in the House, hold a supermajority in the Senate, I think we're starting to see, and we started seeing this with the trailer bills to the Safety Act, the controversial, about concerns over how far progressive, how far left Democrats are willing to go, and how does that maybe
there might be a tipping point.
Might jeopardize with some of the
other thing hanging over
Democrats.
this session is the prospect of J.B. Pritzker running for president. So he's, I mean, that's like sort of the unspoken thing that.
How realistic is that?
I don't, you know, my personal opinion is not super realistic, but for sure, if Joe Biden decides not to run, it seems like he would be throwing his hat in the ring.
And so he needs these kind of legislative
he needs
notches
abortion.
in his belt.
Those are perfect sorts of talking points for a presidential.
Well, I think it's, it's looking more and more, I think, like Biden's going to run. So, and of course, if Biden runs, Pritzker's out. But I think if Biden does step back, I think Pritzker's been sort of laying the groundwork, and he says he's not, but he's thinking about these. He's putting plans out there. So, and he's laying out this legislative agenda around abortion, guns, things like that.
And it's not just the legislative agenda; it's also where the money's gone.
Oh,
and
yes,
he's been very helpful in the national way of not raising money but giving money.
Right.
Maggie Hendricks, we had a tragic story this year in Highland Park, that mass shooting on July 4th. There is a suspect in custody. Do you think that will spur lawmakers to finally act on assault weapons? And not just that, there are all these holes in the FOID card system, the ID that everybody has to get to own a gun.
I mean, I certainly hope so. And I think having people from all over the state have issues with this, but particularly a place like Highland Park, where there are some powerful people and wealthy people who can put money into that particular legislative agenda, I think that's going to mean something. And it may finally mean that the assault weapons ban that we should have will be here.
This would be a statewide assault weapons ban. Rick Pearson, you brought up the Safety Act really quickly. The no cash bail part of that, the judge in Kankakee County strikes it down, but there's no injunction, so there's nothing saying that the law can't take effect or has to get put on hold. So what does that mean come Monday?
That's the big question, I think, and it's really going to almost, I think, come down to a county-by-county situation. You've got the 60 counties that sued that are directly affected by the ruling. I'm not sure that there were that many in the Chicago area. Certainly Cook County was not part of it. So, I mean, I think it's really going to, the thing is, most of the judiciary has been preparing for this, even despite moving their districts around. They've been preparing for this. They've defined by themselves what constitutes bail, and which contradicts what the judge's ruling was. So yes, there'll be an expedited appeal to the Illinois State Supreme Court.
Which is 5-2 Democratic, and a lot of those candidates were funded by J.B. Pritzker. Not to say that they're going to put politics into their consideration, but it would lead one to believe that this law would likely be upheld.
That would be the likely belief, but truly, I mean, we've seen rulings at various times where Republican and Democrats unite on structural system matters, and this constitutes
pension ruling like 10 years ago.
7-0. So this constitutes a structural kind of, I think, question to the court.
And judges take
but
that
it should
seriously.
be pointed out that this is just a cash bail piece of this that's going to be in question.
The
large
pretrial detention.
Right. The rest of it will remain in place, and there are a lot of other really important public safety measures that will go into effect.
Leave aside the judicial aspect of it and all of that. A big issue will be how it works, particularly in the first half of the year. Do we get horror stories? Do we get people out on the streets committing terrible crimes,
or do we
otherwise would have been behind bars, which then opens up all of this again to debate. I don't know what's going to happen, but that is a distinct possibility that no one's talking about right now.
But I do think much of the opposition, and people pointed out, of the various 102 states attorneys, that 100 were opposed to it, and you had these lawsuits. It's going to make them have to work harder.
And that's going to be the other thing to watch.
And the judges as well.
And the
Will
judges,
they be ready? Will the prosecutors be ready?
But the prosecutors are the ones that are up regularly for re-election, and so this is going to reflect on them as well, because they are also supposed to present the case of why somebody should be detained without cash
All right,
bail.
speaking of prosecutions, Steve Daniels, it doesn't feel like this happened this year because this has been such a long year. Mike Madigan, multiple indictments, not only for ComEd, but now AT&T, which came later in the year. So it's likely that his case is not going to go to trial in 2023, but there are other cases related to the alleged ComEd bribery schemes that will. Mike Madigan's top confidants, top ComEd executives. So what is the public likely to learn from those cases about the way Madigan allegedly ran all of this?
Well, we're going to get more detail. Because when you go to trial, you're going to get more detail than we've already got. We've already got plenty. I mean, it's not as if we don't know the basic contours of the alleged scheme and how it worked, and it's not that complicated. But what's going to happen is we do have a trial in March. of former Comment CEO Ann Pramaggiore, Mike McLean, who is Mike Madigan's sort of best friend, henchman, bagman, whatever you want to call him. Yes.
Tom Hagen.
And two others who were involved, Jay Doherty and John Hooker. And so March is going to be a big spectacle in court, unless we see some surprise pleas, which it doesn't look that way right now. So that's the next thing to watch. It will definitely give us more information about all of this. And depending on the outcome, if they don't get convicted, that's a big sign for Mike Madigan, right? So.
But I think the big key is to watch the Mike McLean, and because he is the key man. He is the alleged conduit for all of this. Right. And through all of the years in Springfield, it's been Mike Madigan, and the way you get to Mike Madigan is through Mike McLean.
That's right.
What about Alderman Ed Burke, whose case has been dragging on more than 4 years? Laura Washington, will 2023 be the year that he does actually go to trial?
I don't believe that he's going to go to trial next year. I think that that's been delayed, and this has been this case has been underway for several years, but it got significantly delayed because of the pandemic in terms of pretrial deliberations and that kind of thing. So I don't think we're going to be seeing anything. I don't think either till late next year or 2024. All
right, let's move our lens nationally. Rick Pearson, the January 6th committee submits its report to Congress recommending criminal charges for Donald Trump. Adam Kinzinger, the GOP representative from Shanahan, was a big part of that committee. Would you anticipate Trump indictments in 2023, or are these investigations so big that they're going to take years?
I don't want to predict it, but I do think there's every possibility that the U.S. Department of Justice will issue charges. I can't see otherwise, given the scope of what the January 6th committee laid out, plus the things that committee, as a congressional committee, what they are limited to be able to do versus what the Justice Department can do. And when the Justice Department can actually start pushing the levers on people to turn over evidence. So I think there's every possibility that there'll be serious DOJ charges here.
All right, so that'll be something big to watch in 2023. The economy was a big national story, Steve Daniels. Inflation, especially up around 8% for much of the year. The markets are going to finish the year down. Is that a sign of impending recession in 2023? Yeah,
I mean, that's typically what has been predictive about such things. In fact, I looked at this today just out of curiosity, but in 2008, S&P was down 38%, and then you had the Great Recession in 2009. 2002, S&P was down 23%. That was the popping of the dot-com bubble, if people remember that. S&P down this year 20%. So, what does that tell you about the severity of the recession? Well, I guess maybe the good news is it doesn't seem like it would be Great Recession-like, but typically, yes.
And more locally, in Chicago, major companies leave town. Caterpillar, Citadel, Ken Griffin's hedge fund or a company, Boeing. Is this a hit to Chicago's economy or to our pride?
Both. It's serious, and we've got politicians who have sort of shrugged it off and said, these are a few executives leaving, or it's not economically impactful. But it is extremely important in the public eye of the people, decision makers who make decisions on moving companies into the state or the city. Is this a place to do business? Is this a place to expand? And right now, Chicago has got a PR problem, and pretending we don't is not a good way to go.
And as such, Laura Washington, is there any candidate here that the business community is going to coalesce on in the coming weeks?
The business community has been pretty much sitting on the sidelines. Each candidate, like the Paul Vallases of the world, have some folks that are supporting them. Lori Lightfoot has been making recent attempts to reach out, what I'm hearing is the business community is unhappy because she's just now reaching out to them after she's been there almost 4 years. Where have you been lately? But it seems like for the most part the business community is kind of sitting on the sidelines. They're not crazy about any of the candidates in this race.
So what needs to be done to reverse this trend of companies leaving, or at least taking their headquarters away and luring companies back to the city?
I think the crime issue is a really big one, and that's something that came up in the midterm campaigns and was discussed. And it's going to be, I think that's going to be the #1 topic that's going to be discussed in the mayoral race. Crime it puts a real dent in terms of the city's reputation. Businesses wanting to locate here. That's one of the things that Ken Griffin said made him leave, that he felt that he couldn't bring the people he wanted to bring here and keep them here because of the crime,
particularly
the public safety
the Loop and Michigan Avenue, and the feeling that you're not safe visiting those parts, for tourists or anybody else, that you're not safe coming into what before was thought to be safe places to go to enjoy the city.
And as we mentioned, the homicide number has abated a bit. It's going to end the year likely around 700, if not under. That's less than last year, but it's still more
terrible.
Much more than years past.
A lot of families grieving.
A lot of families. Garfield Park, there was that terrible mass shooting. Another organization leaving part of its operations, the Bears, are they going to close on this Arlington Park land in 2023 and break ground on a stadium?
Well, one of the things that the Bears are doing right now is looking for a new CEO, and when the whole idea of this CEO is somebody who can close that deal. So
this is Kevin Warren. He is the Big Ten commissioner, and there were reports that he interviewed with the McCaskies.
Yeah, and honestly, Kevin Warren would be a great pick because one of the main things he's done with the Big Ten is maximize profit. And that is something the Bears need to do. The Bears leave a lot of money on the table. I know that's surprising for all of us to hear, but considering how small Soldier Field is, and then that means the amount of boxes, the amount of sponsorships, all of those things, they don't have as much of. So Kevin Warren has done a great job with the Big Ten. So I think he would actually
helped build the new Minnesota Vikings stadium, from what I understand.
Absolutely, which is a palace. It's a beautiful stadium that I know I want to go to at some point. So, it's a wonderful stadium, and it's easy to get to. And if they can do the same thing with Arlington Heights, I mean, that's a win, because that's actually something Soldier Field doesn't have.
Rick Pearson, do you think we're going to see a ribbon cutting in Arlington Heights in the next year?
I don't know if it's going to be in the next year, but I think the Bears are gone.
And what happens to Soldier Field then?
I think there's still plenty of opportunities there. You still have soccer that's being played there. There'll be college events there. There'll be concerts that'll still be there. But I think it would be a mistake to try to re-renovate Soldier Field, either as an attempt to show the Bears we can do something.
And these were plans the mayor put forward of putting like a glass roof.
It's too small. Yeah. It is 20,000 seats. Way too small than all of the rest of the NFL.
And as you said, this is about Bears revenue.
And NFL
revenue.
The Bears in the city made a mistake 20 years ago, and there's no fixing that now.
There's no coming back from that. They screwed that up, and it's over now.
Hopefully the Bears haven't screwed up what's going on in the field. A down year, but Justin Fields has everybody excited. Are you confident that General Manager Ryan Poles is going to build a contending team around him? He's got the draft picks. He's got the money this year to go out and make some moves.
And it really looks like he's going to end up having the #1 draft pick, or at least 1 or 2. So I really am kind of confident. I can't say I'm 100% confident, but I do think he can do it because he's going to be in the position to spend the money and to bring in the players, to bring in some good receivers, and most importantly, an offensive line.
And a defensive line. He's got a whole defensive front he's got to rebuild.
Also the defense, yes.
All right. So beyond that.
Just the offense and the defense.
Offense, defense, special teams. We don't even know if the kicker's great.
Yeah, special teams are okay. Oh, but Cairo Santos was, so.
All right, so.
Sorry. I have no happy note to add on.
The White Sox, they truly disappointed their fans this year. They got rid of La Russa. Grifol comes in. They made one big signing in Andrew Benintendi. Are they contenders?
No. They did such a bad job with this Tony La Russa, bringing in Tony La Russa and wasting the prime of a few good players like Tim Anderson. And so I think it's going to take a while. And I don't know if White Sox fans are going to continue to be patient about it, nor should they be.
And they were rabid the last couple of years. They were
really
excited, and they were really let down. Rick Pearson, you're a long-suffering Cubs fan. Are you going to be let down this year? The Cubs have made a couple moves in free agency.
I know what to expect, so I'm not going to be let down. No, not at all.
We still have Wrigley Field. It's like Wrigley Field is become like the Disney World of the North Side.
There is no optimism, and Wrigley Field will still be the world's largest outdoor beer garden.
And you can go figure skating there right now.
Yeah.
It's great. It's fun.
That's pretty amazing, and they've got a carousel and all that stuff. So the Ricketts are finding different ways to maximize the revenue. Maybe they'll pour more of that into the team. The Bulls, will they turn it around this season?
No.
So are they going to break up the whole thing?
I honestly don't know which way they're going to go, if they're going to keep Billy Donovan, if they're going to stick with, they did just give him a contract extension, so probably keeping Donovan. But they just...
Was it a mistake to re-sign Zach LaVine to the max contract like that?
That is, I think, where they went wrong. They brought in a bunch of different puzzle pieces that don't fit together all that well. They're all great puzzle pieces in and of themselves.
That's it. They're all as individual players, but they're not meshing.
I mean, they give up 150 points a game. That's unheard of.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they've had some great games. Wednesday night, they had a great overtime win over the Bucks. It was fun.
I was there.
You were there?
Yeah, boy, that was great.
Yeah, that was a big
That's
win.
fun.
All right, everybody, we are out of time, but before we go, we have to cheers. It's been a great year. It's been a great panel. Thank you all so much for being here with us. Let's toast to a great 2023 and to your health and happiness and big scoops in the year ahead. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
There we go.
Can we do that on TV? Oh, well, we just did.
Well.
All right, we're out of time. Our thanks to Steve Daniels, Laura Washington, Rick Pearson, and Maggie Hendricks. We'll find out if I'm here on Monday, and that's our show for this Friday night. Don't forget you can get Chicago Tonight and the Weekend Review streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. And on a programming note, we'll be off Monday for the holiday, so we'll be back Tuesday. And now for the Weekend Review, I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful New Year. How about the Chicago Sky? Is their window closed?
Well, we'll see. Free agency starts on February 1st.
Have to do your, maybe you can take care of your obligations to the Sky.
I know. I owe them a Chatham alert.
Yeah.
How come you didn't mention the Blackhawks?
Well, I was waiting for you to jump in on that.
Nobody needs that. Yeah.
Taves and Kane, I mean, this is pretty much their swan song.
Yeah, they're about.
Closed captioning is made possible in part by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, wishing all a happy and healthy holiday season.